What's up, everybody? Welcome back again to Axel's Analysis. I'm the man who's too cheap to make up his own name, so Axel still went Axel Mulligan. Episode 3. We've got the Go Home show for NXT before Takeover, and it wasn't the best Go Home show, to be honest with you. There wasn't enough. As much as towards the end of the night, the story progressed with the NXT Championship match between Neville and Kid. There wasn't much before that. Obviously, we had the other semi-final of the Women's Championship tournament. There was nothing really, again, to build the tag team match. And there was no other matches made. So far, we've only got 3 matches. But showstopper, we've got Rich Brennan, Alex Riley and Renee Young on commentary. I'm really glad A-Roy didn't get the boot from commentary because, as I said last week, it would have been a big shame if he did. He's very, very good on the mic, very good as a commentator. Really knows what he's talking about. You know, I think he's done it on the main roster a little bit for, is it Superstars or Main Event or maybe both? I know he definitely did an episode of SmackDown once. No, so that was good to see A-Roy. I'm a big fan of Rich Brennan as well. I really like his work. I think I'm right in saying he worked for the promotion that Booker T runs in Houston, Texas. And he's very good. He reminds me a bit of Todd Kennelly, who did some work for TNA a couple of years ago. So no, as I said, big fan of Rich Brennan, and you know my opinions on Renee Young by now. I can't fucking stand her. First match of the night was Bo Dallas versus Big E. Bo cut a promo before the match to tell the fans that NXT was built around Bo leaving, and the fans should call him Mr. NXT. But Renee Young, you know, to be fair to her, she made a good point on commentary by saying that Shawn Michaels didn't give himself the name Mr. WrestleMania. That was made for him. So Bo shouldn't be giving himself the name Mr. NXT. Calls the NXT universe his family, and he says he'll never leave them. Everybody likes to get on Bo's back in the NXT crowds. He's working well as a heel, I think. I'm quite impressed with him. As I said before, I'm quite impressed with him in recent weeks. Big E came out. He's still big, no pun intended. He's still big in NXT. Fans loved him when he came out. They gave the 5 counts. From obviously when he was there before, you know, obviously when he won his matches, he demanded the referees count to 5. You know, and the start of his entry music, 3 ain't enough, I need 5. So it was good to see that Big E got a big pop because he's not really getting much of that on the main roster at the moment. It was a really good match, really back and forth. Bo hit, towards the end of the match, Bo hit the double underhook DDT. And nobody's kicked out of Bo's double underhook DDT until now, that is. And the look on his face was priceless. He was like, what the fuck have I got to do to beat this guy? It was brilliant. So well done to Bo for that. The end of the match came about. He removed the turnbuckle pad, much like he did in their NXT title match about 18 months or so ago. But Big E pushed him into the exposed turnbuckle, hit the big end in. 1, 2, 3. Bo's gone from NXT, but the one thing I've got here on my notes, I've drawn a little sad face. Big E won the match, but he didn't do the 5 count afterwards. I know obviously he's moved on from that, but it was still been. I don't think it would have worked, but it would still have been nice to have seen it if it was a lesser match. Obviously, this is quite a big match with Bo Dallas being the main guy in NXT for the last year or so. But no, it was a shame we didn't get to see that. Bo throws a bit of a temper tantrum in the ring, much like he did a few weeks ago. And the fans started singing na 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 na. I'm not going to carry on singing because I can't. After the break, we get one of those during the break videos. Bo kicked the steel steps and hurt his foot. He went down like he'd been fucking shot, which was hilarious. The fans started chanting, Bo, leave, Bo, leave. And as they were saying leave, they were pointing to the ramp, saying, leave, go, get out. And for me, that was a brilliant NXT moment. You know, if I've just finished my top 15 SmackDown moments, and if I was to do, say, a top 5 NXT moments, I think that would be one of my top 5 moments because the whole crowd was just on Bo like you wouldn't fucking believe. It was brilliant. they showed like his cheesy Hill promo that Bo cut after the match, saying, "I thought he was going to cut a bit. I thought he was going to go a bit babyface with it, to thank the fans." But he said, "For the people who spent their money to see me, I strongly dislike you." And then he says, "I don't usually I don't usually use language like this, but you guys stink." And there's me thinking, language like that. I know he's a cheesy Hill, but I thought he was going to sort of, I don't know. I thought he was going to use a bit stronger language, but this is Bo Dallas promo. It worked well for his character, I think. He tells the fans to leave. I think what it was, when it was recorded, this was recorded as the main event of the show. But for whatever reason, it was bumped up to the first match, and for me, it should have been the main event because it was the biggest match of the night. Bo tells the fans to leave, and they chant it back, "You leave." And Bo said, "No, you leave." It's very pantomime-like. And I liked it. I thought it was really good. Bo said he's going to leave because he's the bigger man. Bo left. Really good little segment now. I really enjoyed that. As I said before, I'm not a Bo leaver, but I'm really impressed with Bo over the last, sort of 3 or 4 months since, like, towards the end of his title reign, his feud with Neville, and then since then he's done really well, I think. So, you've got to give a lot of respect to somebody where it's deserved. So no, well done to Bo. He had a really good little end to his run in NXT. And I'm actually looking forward to him on the main roster. I've not watched this week's SmackDown yet, so I'm not sure who he faced. I know he had a match, but I can't remember. It was against Sin Cara, rings a bell, or as I like to call him, Hunakara. So, we'll see what happens with that. I'm looking forward to seeing him on the main roster. Second match for the night, to me, was another sort of farewell NXT match. It was Tamina versus Paige. And Paige looked fucking stunning, as she always does, to be fair to her. Tamina used the power game really well. She worked over Paige's lower back, lots of suplexes, bear hugs, things like that. Tamina went for the Superfly splash, but Paige caught her in the face with a boot as she came down. And Paige rolled her up to get the 3. It was a typical match of how they're booking Paige on the main roster. I think it was Nick Meltzer McGee who said it on the Sunday Segway podcast last week. It seems as though they don't want Paige, who's just come up from NXT, to out wrestle the older generation of main roster divas, which is a shame because you're fucking burying one of your best talents. I would say she's probably in the top 2 or 3. I would say definitely Natalya is the best female wrestler in the WWE, and then it's probably, you're looking between AJ and Paige for the number 2 and number 3. So you can't bury somebody just because of how they're being brought up, just because they're being brought up onto the main roster. You've got Paul Heyman said it rightly in ECW. You've got to promote your strengths and you've got to hide your weaknesses. Paige doesn't have many weaknesses in the ring, but she's got a lot of strengths, so you need to highlight those strengths. If she's a brilliant technician. She's not too far behind Natalya as a technician, so promote it. Don't fucking bury it, because it's just going to turn the fans away from her. I think it was Kevin Nash said on Twitter, he saw Paige the first time he saw her, and the first thought he had was money. Paige is money. She will make the WWE money. You got to promote it. You can't hide the fact that she can wrestle. And I've got to say as well, just something to add to it, the match was a lot better than the match they had at Extreme Rules. It was a much shorter match. They worked it well. Paige had a bit of offense at the start of the match. And then when sort of, to counter the Superfly splash, that was really well done. Tamina worked well. She worked the power game well. I thought the match at Extreme Rules, it was a very scruffy kind of match, but this one was executed a lot better. So, I'm going to give respect to these two as well. The third match of the night was Adam Rose versus Camacho. And this was a dog shit match for me because the feud's been crap. I like both guys. I'm a big fan of Adam Rose. I was a big fan of him under the Leo Kruger gimmick, and I'm a big fan of Camacho. But the match was crap, in all honesty. It didn't last long enough. Camacho just sort of basically bottled it. He walked out of the ring and didn't want to come back in. You know, he's the one who started this feud. Why is he fucking running away from it? I don't understand it. I know he's the heel, but don't start something you're not going to finish. He won by a count out. He just didn't want to get back in the ring, basically, because Adam Rose had a bit of a flurry of offensive maneuvers. I'm expecting to see something happen at TakeOver between the two, but I think you've got to add a stipulation to the match where there's no countouts or something like that. Or, I don't know, yeah, maybe like a no counts or a no disqualification match or something, just to end the feud. If this is the payoff for the feud, I'm going to be fucking disappointed, and I think most people will be as well. As I said, it was a dog shit match, really, which is a shame because both guys can work. The fourth match of the night was Natalya versus Sasha Banks. This is the second semi-final in the Women's Championship tournament. Obviously, Charlotte was in Sasha's corner, you know, the BFFs that they've got going on. It was short but impressive. I've said it on Twitter, I don't know how many times, I'm always impressed with Sasha Banks. She's one of the ones to look out for. She'll be on the main roster within the next 12 to 18 months, if not sooner, because she is that good. She's got that swagger about her. She's like, yeah, I'm better than you. And to be fair, she is better than most of the divas on the NXT roster. She's got the look about her. Apparently, I don't know if it was storyline or I don't know if it's like a real life thing that she's Snoop Dogg's cousin or second cousin or something. But she's got that. She looks like, it's like Paige. She's money for me. End of the match happened. She hit a bulldog, like a headlock bulldog, and she sort of landed awkwardly and looked like she pulled a hamstring or tweaked her hamstring. She rolled to the outside of the ring just to sort of, you know, recompose herself while the referee was counting. I think got to like a 4 or 5 count. Charlotte's saying, you know, what are you doing? Get back in the ring, get back in the ring. So Sasha's sort of trying to recompose herself. Charlotte throws her back in the ring. Sasha looks over and says, you know, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you getting involved? She turns around. She goes after Natalya, who's playing possum. Sharpshooter locked in, and Sasha taps out. And the look on Charlotte's face was like, oh fuck, what the hell have I just done? Obviously a bit of dissension between the two. You know, well, go to the main talking point first now. Natalya versus Charlotte is set for TakeOver. I read some rumours this week that Ric Flair was going to be in Charlotte's corner, and they were trying to get Bret Hart to be in Natalya's corner. Whether Bret's going to be there or not remains to be seen, but apparently Ric Flair's a lock, so he's going to be there. But there was talk of Bret having other commitments for that night, so he's probably not going to be there. But then they also said about having Jim Neidhart there, which would be, I understand why they'd have Bret, because obviously he's the bigger name, but then you've got Jim Neidhart, who's Natalya's father, so I think either would work well. I'd like to see Jim Neidhart there to support his daughter, but we'll see what happens next week. Yeah, as I said, a bit of dissension between the two. I'm expecting them to break up. I'm guessing that they'll have Charlotte win the title at TakeOver next week. Maybe have like a rematch against Natalya, and then I would say that we're looking at a feud between Sasha and Charlotte because dissension's been coming for a couple of weeks now. Sorry, the breakup's been sort of in the mix for a couple of weeks now, and you know, if they do have a feud, I think they could have some really good matches. Charlotte's been more impressive recently, and Sasha, I've been saying for months over Twitter and when I was writing blogs, I've been very impressed with Sasha Banks. I think she's a really good worker. So yeah, if that does happen, I think that could be, you know, one of the biggest feuds in NXT. I think that will work really well. The main event is up next. You can't really call it a main event, I suppose, because the match only lasted for about 3 minutes. NXT champion Adrian Neville against Curt Hawkins. And I understand that you've got to have somebody there to sort of build up the champion, you know, a jobber, not necessarily a jobbing wrestler, but you've got to have somebody job to the champion. Why Curt Hawkins? Curt Hawkins is a hell of a wrestler. Why is he in a position as a jobber? I don't understand it. He's got his own like wrestling school in New York, I believe. In my opinion, and definitely in the opinion of a lot of other people as well. Why can't they team him back up with Zack Ryder? Zack Ryder's not doing anything. Curt Hawkins isn't doing anything. The tag team's crying out for more teams. Get them together. They were brilliant when they were the Edgeheads. They worked really well together. I don't understand why they split them up. Nobody understood why they split them up. Zack obviously had a decent little mid-card run towards the end of 2011, beginning of 2012, but he's done fuck all since. You know, Curt Hawkins has done fuck all since breaking up with Tyler Rex. And that didn't last very long. You know, he had a couple of pay-per-view matches. I remember he had one against Ryback in his pink eye. And I think he had another, like a tag team turmoil or something maybe, I don't know. Well, maybe he didn't. I can't exactly remember now, but why is Curt Hawkins sort of being jobbed out? He's a good wrestler. Get them teaming together again. You know, you need tag teams. Get them together. Anyway, short match, as I said, it was only sort of 3 minutes long. Neville won with a red arrow. Hawkins had a bit of, you know, he got a few attacking moves in at the start of the match. And he looked good. That's why I'm sort of having that little rant there. You know, why isn't he doing more? He's a good wrestler. Tyson Kidd came out after the match. He congratulated Adrian Neville and said that he'll win the title next week from him. You know, typical I'm going to beat you kind of promo. But then he said he talks about how he's worked on Raw. He's worked on SmackDown. He had a WrestleMania moment when Bret Hart faced Vince McMahon. He's been a tag team champion. And he said he wants that feeling back again of being a champion and having those moments. And he says that the NXT title and NXT is his launching pad to get that feeling back and get to that point where he was. Neville says that he's watched Tyson for a long time. He respects him. But he tells him that the only person that's going to be taking home gold after TakeOver will be his wife. And there was a big, oh shit, no, you didn't just do that. From the crowd, and it was good, but I think the feud, if you're gonna go that way with it, you need another week at least to build it. I don't know, maybe have like a sit down interview on WWE.com over the weekend or something, or like early part of next week. Just something extra to build it, because I think these two could have a good feud if they could have sort of like a 3-match feud. Like the first match for the title, the second match a non-title match, and then a third match for the title, like the rubber match. I think that could work quite well. Yeah, that was the end of the show. Sort of Tyson left the ring, and that was the end of the show. They had the stare down from the entrance ramp in the ring. For me, there was too many matches on the show. You know, there was like 5 matches. I think we could have done without Adam Rose versus Camacho, just to give the other matches that little sort of extra couple of minutes each. You know, they could have had that at TakeOver, and I think we probably will see that at TakeOver because, as I said, it was a bullshit match on NXT this week between the two. But the last 2 matches, they finished far too quickly for me. Sasha versus Natalya, as much as it was a decent little match, as well as, you know, Adrian Neville and Curt Hawkins. Both matches finished far too quickly for my liking. I'd like to have seen a bit more back and forth in those 2 matches. So overall, I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. We're looking at the TakeOver card. We've only got 3 matches so far, as I mentioned. Neville versus Kidd for the NXT title. We've got Charlotte potentially with Ric Flair in her corner versus Natalya with potentially Jim Neidhart or Bret Hart in her corner. That's for the NXT Women's title. Excuse me. And then we've got the NXT title match between the Ascension and El Local and Kalisto. And I think what we should have had this week was just maybe some sort of backstage segment where the Ascension took out El Local and Kalisto. You know, these guys are rough and rugged guys. You know, they should be taking people out just at free will. I know they're sort of kicking the shit out of jobbers every week or every other week, but no, the feud haven't obviously had enough build to it. So we'll see how the match turns out. I mean, I'd like to see a small feud between those 2 teams, as I've said before. So other people I'm expecting to see it TakeOver. Obviously, Sami Zayn. Why he's not he's not locked for a match yet, I don't know. Maybe we'll see him against like Tyler Breeze or something like that. Mojo fucking Rawley. I fucking hate Mojo Rawley, but they want to force him down our fucking throats. So I'm guessing we'll see Mojo there. Adam Rose, as I said, I'm expecting to see him versus Camacho, and I'm expecting like an appearance from Bo Dallas, even though he's left NXT now, or left, inverted commas. I'm expecting to see him there, maybe in some sort of like, I want to come back to NXT, and then Triple H or JBL gets the security to drag him out, kind of like how Chris Jericho was dragged out of Raw the night after SummerSlam 2005. I think that would work well, actually, because Bo likes to throw these temper tantrums, and it would work. It would work. If you've seen that Jericho moment from 2005, you'll know what I'm talking about. You got Bo Dallas, who's a snivelling, snotty little child when he wants to be, attitude-wise, obviously. And he's acting like a spoiled brat, and he wants what he wants, and he's not going to leave until he gets it. So he's going to get dragged out the arena. I'd love to see that. I think that would go down really well. On to the news for this week. Drake Younger, a lot of people know, has been hired as a referee. And the reason he was hired as a referee, what I've read, is that they don't want any more cruiserweight-sized wrestlers. I've gone through the NXT roster on WWE.com. The cruiserweight weight limit was £220. That's what I remember from when Matt Hardy was a cruiserweight champion. So wrestlers in NXT under £220. I am going somewhere with this. We got Adrian Neville, Aiden English, CJ Parker, Corey Graves, Enzo Amore, Kalisto, Sami Zayn, Sylvester Lefort, Tyler Breeze, Rick Victor, and then also we got guys who come down from the main roster. We've got Tyson Kidd, Justin Gabriel, and Xavier Woods. You've got that many cruiserweights, you're doing fuck all with them. Here's a fucking idea. Let's bring in a cruiserweight title. It worked really well on the main roster for SmackDown between 2002 and 2007. Why not fucking bring it back? We don't have the cruiserweights like we used to have. We used to have the high-flying guys like Paul London, Rey Mysterio. You'd have guys like Chavo Guerrero, Gregory Helms, or the Hurricane, whichever sort of gimmick he was working at the time. We had Brian Kendrick. We had Jimmy Wang Yang. There was loads of guys. Ultimo Dragon worked there for a while as well. And Division was the most exciting part of the show on SmackDown. If you've got this many cruiserweights, as I said, they're not the same sort of cruiserweights as what we've had, but why not have a title for those guys? That's sort of like 13 or 14 guys I've just named there, and they're basically doing fuck all. Apart from Neville, none of them are doing anything. I'm just looking at this list now. Kalisto's obviously got his title match. Tyler Breeze has never really had a sustained feud, apart from when CJ Parker sort of debuted this hippie gimmick. What's he done recently? Tyler Breeze. I love watching Tyler Breeze in the ring. He needs something to go for, because he's, as much as he had this NXT title shot, or sort of number one contender shot recently, he's not done anything aside from that, has he? Let's be fair. Victor's the tag team champion, but it's in a dead division. Sylvester Lefort's in a tag team now. CJ Parker's just preaching about, global warming, let's prevent it. Well, why not do it whilst holding a title like CM Punk did? CM Punk preached straight edge whilst he was the world heavyweight champion, like in his feud against Jeff Hardy. Corey Graves. Corey Graves has the fucking look. He's got the ring skills. He's got the mic skills. Why isn't he on NXT more often? Why isn't he potentially being talked about to being moved up to the main roster? There's talk recently, I think it was mentioned on the Segue last week. Corey Graves will work well in Evolution. Put him up there. Give him a go. If he doesn't, you can bump him back down to NXT after a couple of months, and at least you can then rebuild him, bring him back up at a later date, like Bo Dallas was. Bo Dallas was brought up too early back last year, and he got sent back down. Why not? I don't understand why they can't do something like that. Same with Aiden English as well. Enzo Amore is just coming back from injury. Bring in a cruiserweight title. You can use Drake Younger as a wrestler then. Drake Younger is one of the best, or was one of the best wrestlers on the indie circuit. Fucking use him. because you're just wasting raw wrestling talent otherwise. As well, they've mentioned that Kevin Steen is potentially coming to the WWE. Two things about this. I can see what they'll do is they'll give him the Chris Hero treatment, lose weight, you're not coming on TV until you lose weight. But the weight issue, the weight's not an issue with Kevin Steen for me because he's very athletic, he's very agile. I've started watching Ring of Honor a lot more the last 2 or 3 weeks. I'm sort of halfway through watching War of the Worlds as we speak. Kevin Steen is a legitimate guy in the business. He means what he says and he does what he says he's going to do. If he says he's going to kick your ass, he's going to kick your ass. This is Kevin Steen. Kevin Steen is fucking brilliant. He is Mr. Wrestling. It's not just a nickname. He is Mr. Wrestling. The other thing about him is that for me, he needs to keep that identity of Kevin Steen. He can't change his name because he's carved out that legacy as Kevin Steen. It didn't work for Chris Hero when they named him as Cassius Ohno. It might have worked for a little while in NXT towards the end of his run because he was getting a good rub off of guys like William Regal. This obviously has worked with Daniel Bryan. Real name of Bryan Danielson. Cesaro is working for him now. It worked for CM Punk. It doesn't always work then. Once you've got the experience behind you of a guy like Kevin Steen, I don't think you can change that identity. But we'll see if he does sign. We'll see what they do with him. Apparently as well, the NXT Divas are getting more ring time at the live events. Obviously that's only good for their development, We'll see if they can sort of translate that onto TV. I'm not sure they will just yet, but if they're sort of working on improving them on the live events, and when they've improved enough, it's like I said earlier about what Paul Heyman did in ECW. If you can promote the positives and hide the negatives, you can promote or not necessarily promote the negatives, but you can work on the negatives off of TV, because I don't think the NXT live events get that many people turn up, so there's not going to be many people that really care too much. But once they've improved on those negatives and put them into positives, you can then get them on TV and highlighting those positives. As I said, that's only good for their development, and it's good for WWE as well, obviously, because obviously the stronger wrestling roster you've got, the stronger your company's going to be. Last little bit of news is that Enzo Amore is back at live events. So I mentioned last week he'd been working in the ring at live events. So I've obviously been misinformed. What he has been doing is he's been sort of getting in the ring at the Performance Center, and at the live events he's been with Colin Cassidy in his corner. But they're looking to get him back in the ring at live events shortly. So, as I said before, I'm a big fan of Enzo Amore. He's got a big future ahead of him, I think, because his mouth will talk him to the top. Whether he's got the ring skills or not, probably an unpopular opinion, possibly not. The Rock was never a great wrestler. He was a good wrestler, but he wasn't a great wrestler. But he had the mic skills to get him to where he needed to be. And apparently he kissed a lot of ass as well, but that's another story. On to the birthdays for this week, the wrestling birthdays. May 19th, Andre the Giant would have turned 78. May the 20th, the Road Dogg, Jesse James, turned 45. Excuse me. There was 4 on May the 21st. We had Nancy and Chris Benoit. Obviously, everybody knows the story behind, their deaths or passings, or however you want to call it. Nancy would have been 50 and Chris would have been 47. Daniel Bryan turned 33 and Mr. T turned 62. That was quite a surprise to me when I read that. I thought, well, he's probably only in his mid-50s, but no, 62 apparently. May the 22nd, another sadly deceased wrestler, Brian Pillman, would have been 52. And Bray Wyatt turned 27, Wyndham Rotunda. May the 23rd, you had Elijah Burke turning 36. The 24th was the birthday of Alberto Del Rio, who turned 37, and Roman Reigns turned 29. And May the 25th, Bo Dallas's 24th birthday. This week in wrestling history, it's another section that I added last week. On the 19th, May the 19th, was the death of Randy Macho Man Savage. I believe that was, he had a heart attack at the driving wheel, I think it was. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's what it was, but he died in 2011 at the age of 58. Obviously, one of the darker days of wrestling in recent times. 2002, The Undertaker won his fourth and final WWE Championship from Hulk Hogan at Judgment Day in 2002, which that probably was my favourite pay-per-view from 2002. If anybody hasn't seen it, make sure you watch it because it was really good. You had a Hell in a Cell match as well between Jericho and Triple H. You had Austin versus The Big Show and Ric Flair. Some really good matches on that card. So if you haven't seen it, obviously if you get a chance to check it out. May the 20th, Bruno Sammartino, 1974, defeated Killer Kowalski in a Texas death match to retain the WWF title. May the 21st, Triple H defeated The Rock to become the new champion, the new WWF champion as it was then. Judgment Day 2000, that was a 60-minute Iron Man match. And Shawn Michaels was the referee in that match, and it also marked the return or the re-debut under the American Badass gimmick of The Undertaker. So, again, another fairly big moment for WWE. Then another Judgment Day pay-per-view, 2006, Booker T became King Booker. He won the King of the Ring tournament. He defeated Bobby Lashley in the final. Shame they got rid of the King of the Ring tournament, actually. I was always quite big on it, but apparently it sort of lost its meaning after Brock won it in 2002, so they sort of scrapped it for a few years, and I think we've had it 3 times since. Obviously, Booker won it in 2006. I think Regal won it in 2008. Correct me if I'm wrong again. And then Sheamus won it in 2010. And that King Sheamus gimmick was absolutely horseshit. If anyone's seen it, you know what I mean. It was awful. May the 22nd. This was excuse me. This was SmackDown 2001. Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho won the first 4-way TLC tag title match to retain their tag team titles. I can't remember who the other 3 teams were now. I think it was the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was. But it was probably one of the best TLC matches. It was the 3rd TLC match in history. As I say, for me, it was one of the best ones. You don't get TLC matches like that now because it's all based around the main events, where back then it was all based around the tag team division. And they were only used at very rare occasions. We only saw 3 in the first sort of 2 years of its inception. We saw 1 the following year, and then we didn't see 1 again for another sort of maybe 4 or 5 years. So, no, I think they need to sort of lessen. Like, if they could use the TLC matches for these tag team title matches again, that would only help to improve the divisions as well. Also made a 22nd. This was last year. So it was a year ago. Stupidly me saying that. Bo Dallas defeated Big E to become the NXT champion. I don't know if that's some sort of poetic symmetry or poetic justice that a year on, Big E would defeat Bo Dallas sort of like a year on to get him out of NXT after he sort of ended his NXT career. So I literally just sort of reading off the notes that I've written down here, and I'd completely forgotten that I'd written it while I was talking about the match. So nice little sort of ending there for Bo's NXT career for me. May the 23rd was the death of Owen Hart. Obviously, everybody knows what happened there. Obviously, this accident falling from the rafters. I think it was a pay-per-view in 1999. Over the Edge, I think it was called. Only 34 years old. Again, another sort of sad loss, really. I mean, the following night they had the Raw is Owen tribute show, and everybody knows what's been going on with Owen since then. Quite a sad moment, obviously. something that you don't hear about every day in wrestling. Somebody losing their life whilst doing their job. But no, so it's never nice to hear back about these kind of things. Obviously, I go back to the Benoit tragedy again. Such a young life and a great talent Owen Hart was. So it's sort of sad to look back and think about that now for me. May the 24th was the death of Vince McMahon Sr. Again, another sad moment. That was 30 years ago, 1984. Passed away with cancer. Excuse me. I remember reading years ago it was in Hulk Hogan's autobiography where he said that he sort of went into the arena toilets and he noticed that Vince Sr. was pissing blood, and he just knew that he was dying. Again, as I said, a very sad moment. You know, the guy sort of founded the company, not necessarily founded the company, I'm not sure if he did or didn't, but he certainly moved it onto a bigger scale, and then his son took it to what it is now. So, you know, a few little sad bits that I've covered for this week in wrestling history, but that's what I like to talk about, though. You know, what's going on. I like the history of the business. I'm a big fan for it. So yeah, that's the end of the show. We've got the shout-outs now. First, Tim Vicious. As I said before, he was the guy who sort of told me, look, if I want to do this, just do it. And it was the biggest sort of thing that I needed, really, because I was sort of thinking, I've got a lot of the same views as a lot of other people, some differing views. Spoke to Tim about it, and he said, no, do it. If you want to do it, do it. If you fail, shit happens. But you can find Tim on Twitter at Tim Vicious, or you can find his backup account at Tim_Vicious. And make sure you check out his YouTube show, Vicious Rants. He does shows each week. He covers the rules, and also when we have pay-per-views, he covers those as well. Sunday Segue. Great podcast every week. You can find that on YouTube, iTunes, Podomatic. There's a couple of other places you can find it as well, which I can never remember. You can find them on Twitter at Sunday Segue. You've got Kinney and Shugs on there. They do a brilliant job each week. You know, it's always a good laugh, and something I really enjoy listening to. As I said before, I've only listened to it for a few months now, and I really enjoy it. It's always a good laugh, and Sunday afternoons, it just completes a good Sunday afternoon really for me. So make sure you check out the Beat the Clock challenge that they'll be having over the next few months as well. Excuse me. I'm going to be part of that. I think that's on May the 29th. I'm going to be on. On July the 29th. I'm going to be on there. So yeah, my opponent's Michael Cook. I know Michael's looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it as well. And James Powers, the next shout out. James is going to be sort of the quizmaster stroke referee, I believe. So I know he's looking forward to it as well. You can find James on Twitter at JamesPowers33. James does his own YouTube show as well. It's called James's Wrestling Rambles. I think he's done about 17 or 18 episodes now. But again, it's something I enjoy listening to. This week he had James Belmont and Roxy on the show. And those are two of my favourite people as well to talk about with wrestling. James and Roxy, you know, they're very well-educated fans. James is a well-educated fan as well. So make sure you check out James's Wrestling Ramble. Pro Wrestling Smark Talk on Twitter at PW Smark Talk. Nick does a brilliant job. As I've said before, I really enjoy listening to the interviews that he does with guys and girls from all over the globe. You can find a link to his website on his Twitter page. He's got a YouTube channel as well, which I'm not too sure what it is, but I'll find out from Nick and I'll put it in the details of this video on YouTube, and I'll put it on Podomatic as well. Excuse me. But no, Nick's a very, very well-educated fan. I mean, I think I know my stuff, but Nick knows a hell of a lot more than I'll ever know. He's probably forgotten more than I've ever known. So, yeah, make sure you check out his page at PW Smart Talk. And then lastly is Wrestling Rambles. That's wrestling without the G on Twitter at Wrestling Rambles. I just last week finished my last SmackDown Countdown blog. But you can always go back there and check out all the other blogs that people write as well. There's a lot of really well-educated fans that write for Wrestling Rambles. And if anybody from Wrestling Rambles is listening now, I'm not sure it was who approached me to write for them, I just want to thank them for the opportunity, because it was a really good experience for me to be able to do that. And thanks to everybody who read my blogs on there, and I'll continue to read all the other blogs that I see on there. If anybody wants me to write for them, I'm not looking to write at the moment. Just want to sort of take a break from it for a little while. But if anybody wants me to write for them in the future, I know a lot of people. This isn't me bragging. This is what I get from feedback from people. A lot of people have enjoyed reading my blogs. A lot of people have told me they enjoy reading them. So if anybody wants me to write for them in the future, just give me a shout on Twitter. My account is @AxelMulligan, or you can find my other page, which is @Axel's Analysis. I'm going to start using the Axel's Analysis page a lot more than my sort of personal page, if you will, for these podcasts or shows or whatever you want to call them. So, yeah, thanks for listening, guys, and that's the end of the show.